Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens. This is Jake along with Scott, and tonight we are thankful to have Jeff Hopmayer, the founder of Brindiamo Group, here. Join us in the basement, aka the office is what we call it. So Jeff, thanks for coming all the way up from Nashville to hang out with us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for inviting me.
Of course. It's always great to do these in person because it just brings so much more energy. And I know we're probably all Zoom fatigued at this point.
I think I am, for sure. Especially after work.
Yeah.
Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, whatever they all are. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, depending on which client, right? They'll have their own interface you got to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody's still got issues with it after all these years.
You know what really throws me off? When someone gives me a go to meting. Yeah, you haven't had that one in a while, have you?
No, that was like old school.
Yeah, still got it.
Oh.
Yeah, go to meeting.
Huh.
I actually had somebody call a conference call.
Oh, what?
That was really good.
Like a dial-in line?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was good.
I remember my days at my first company, big company, and they would just like, get on the bridge. And I'm like, what's the bridge?
That's right.
What's the extension?
Yeah, like
They had those things in the pods in the middle of the conference rooms, right?
Yeah. And
Extended microphones around.
And the numbers would be like this long. And they're like, how do I remember this while I'm in the car, like trying to drive? And this was before you could just like hit a button and it would just dial in.
to dial in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Oh, miss those days.
Mute button.
Yeah. Oof. The best is when you have a big call and then it's like kind of later in the afternoon and people have their kids and they're just like some parent just goes off on a kid in the background. And I was just be like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. That's judicious use of the mute button.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's during COVID, it was kind of crazy. You would get on these team calls and then all hell would break loose and you're just like, it is what it is.
It is. That's what you got to deal with today. So
yeah. So it's good. It's good. I guess we can call this post-COVID reality now and getting back in person and sipping some whiskey. You were gracious enough to allow us something out of your private stash that you've, created. So just before we get into whiskey stuff, this is kind of the essence of who you are a little bit with this kind of barrel and that no one else can find. So I'm sorry for you all.
It's not on retail shelves.
Yeah, we got a present.
It is fully legal
yes.
and distributed and comes through the right places. But, when one of the things Brindiamo has been really great about is I don't want to compete with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't launch brands. We'll help people launch them, but we won't do it ourselves, right? Because then I'm competing with Dixon Dedman and everybody else, and I don't want to. But because of what we do being in the liquor business, everybody asks us for donations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, we might as well put a bottle out there that's priceless, that nobody can price shop, that you can only get at auction, that you can only find. And in having all of these barrels that we own or oversee, I mean, I think today it's like 260,000 barrels, found some choice barrels that I really like the liquid coming out of. I think 7 barrels in total. Not that the other ones aren't great. It's just I found these. And I said, all right, I'm just going to make a Hopmayer label. And I bottle it over at Boundary Oak.
Oh, nice.
He does it for me, and it's great. And just give them out to charities and to friends and things like this because it is an outstanding liquid.
Yeah, that we'll never see again.
That's right. When these last 8 bottles are gone, unless you've got it, that's it. There are no more. So
yeah, and I think that's really cool. Like that's like we used to give away barrel picks to charities and stuff like that because it was fun. Like not everyone gets to go and just pick a barrel of whiskey from anywhere. So I think having something where you've invested time, energy, and effort and people to get to experience what you've been able to do and grow over the last several years is pretty outstanding and a pretty fun way to do that.
Thanks. It is fun. I always like putting it down on a table because everybody, actually when I checked into the hotel today, I had a bottle and I had it on the couch and there's a whole bunch of guys in their Southern Wine and SWS, jackets. And they all were, checking out the bottles and everything, trying to figure out what it was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So for people who don't know what Brindiamo is, the majority of our nerdy listeners probably already know by now. But for those who don't, can you just give people a little bit of background on what Brindiamo is to the industry?
Sure. Well, first, I always get the question. People always ask, "What the hell does Brindiamo mean?"
Sure.
Right?
I was just going to look past that one because I didn't know.
It actually means to toast in Italian.
Okay.
So that's where it really came from. And Brindiamo today, I believe, is really the market leader in providing bourbon and whiskey and bulk spirits around the globe. And we supply the big guys, the little guys. We buy them from the likes of Constellation or other places, and we sell them. And, we own rickhouses and Irish whiskey. And it's really a place where any brand, any owner, any distillery can come to us, and we can fill in gaps in their inventory, gaps in their portfolio. I'm not mentioning specific, but, one of the big guys came to us. Their sales are rocketing through the roof, and they needed to backfill into empty inventory because they were selling so fast. So, they gave us their tracking, what they were doing and everything. We backfilled in 37,000 barrels for them, because otherwise they would have run out.
Yeah.
So it's not just craft guys, right? Like Dixon Deadman and Kentucky Owl or any of those. It's not just those types of places. It happens all across the place. And we do it again, not just, certainly Kentucky bourbon is our biggest piece of it.
Yeah.
But we do Irish whiskey, we do Scotch as well. And it's quite fun.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine getting to try barrels from all over the country or all over Kentucky. Because you're buying lots, right? Like I think to get into a little bit of the nerdy part of this, it's not like you're buying like a barrel here or a barrel there. You're buying lots of whiskey when you are bringing them into your rick houses. Is that?
So a lot of times we'll leave them at the rick houses where they are, but sometimes I guess it really depends on what we think the opportunity is and what the liquid is. Certainly I'll buy 1 barrel or 4 barrels, right? But the other day we bought, I don't know, 897 barrels at one time. Yeah. Right. And you get 1 4-ounce sample and you make that evaluation off of that. So you're obviously buying more than 1 lot code. Yeah. Right. But I think today we know enough about the producers, the DSPs, where it's coming from, how it works, that we're able to really keep a tremendous high quality across what we do. And again, with the rickhouse, sometimes we bring them in there, sometimes we don't. Yeah. Same holds true for Irish whiskey. We were talking, I think today I have the oldest Irish whiskey out there available in the bulk. I think it's well over 20 years. Wow. That's out there. Some guys that bought it from us made a bottle. The bottle had $15,000 of packaging around it, and it auctioned in Texas for $1 million. Oh Yo. God. So what? It's crazy, right?
There's people that just like piss out money. Like
it's an auction. It was for charity. It was good. It went to help a lot of people, right?
Well, I'm glad that they do that. But like $1 million on something you're literally, if you do drink it, it will come out of you a few hours later.
I have bottle 2. I didn't pay that for it because it was my liquid, but it is in my house. Yeah. It came to me in a black case that they flew over first class on American Airlines, right? And I had to go get it cleared and everything, brought it to the house, opened it up, and I go, yep, I'm not tasting that ever. Yeah. This is going to stay there. And they actually ship it with a bottle of Irish water because they don't want you to mix Irish whiskey with water here.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it was that. They give you a mister.
Oh, yeah.
That to spray that is the scent of the rickhouse. Right. That's the kind of stuff that they did, right?
Oh, man. But if you're going to do that, go big, right?
Go big or go home is one of my favorite things, right? If you're going to do it, do it.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around buying 900 barrels at one time based upon a 4-ounce sample, but it's not like we're scouting NBA in elementary school at this point. Like you said, you have enough information on the brands, on the distillers, what they're making, that what this is going to be in X amount of years.
Yeah. I mean, if you some of the history, like the 12-year-old that you're drinking that's in the Hopmayer, I don't even know what it would be today. Maybe it's the 14-year-old that's out there. But a lot of it was all sourced from us, 12-year-old. We did a huge buy, got 1 4-ounce sample, and spent millions of dollars and had all that 12-year-old. I mean,
yeah.
It's the same way we sample it out of a tanker or out of an ISO, right? It's just a 4-ounce, and you take your best shot at it.
So what would you say was like your biggest, like, shoot your shot? Was it the 12-year stuff that you bought then? Or was it like, since we're talking about going big or going home, like in small sample sizes, like what was your biggest shot that you ever took on purchasing liquid?
On purchasing liquid.
See, and that's a thinking question right there.
It is a thinking question because I think they're all shots, right? It's because even today, I have some product that is, in the 8, 9, 10-year-old range, and we bought a ton of lot codes. One lot code was bad, right? But that was not the lot code we sampled. Yeah. So these things happen. And in all the time we've done this, we've gotten better at knowing lot codes. We've gotten better at knowing what the samples taste like. We did have one time somebody tried to fool us and was selling doctored rum in barrels. And 2 master distillers accepted it. So it was that good. But something was off in the codes and the information we got, and we just kept digging and digging and digging and sent it in to get tested and found out it was rum, and we walked away from it.
That's a big shot to get right, because it becomes like basketball at some point, right? There's really good shots that you can take, and then there's really lucky shots that you might make right along the way. But you have to be a shot taker.
You have to take the shot. So, for us, you have to have the cash to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
And Brindiamo's great. I mean, literally no debt, nothing. It is our cash that we're spending when we make these buys. I think that our shots today are really about investing in the future of the business. While I can buy something, look, anybody today can buy, if they could find it, 15-year-old and sell it tomorrow, right? It just would, that's the game. But we actually make, between multiple distilleries, about 100,000 barrels of new fill a year.
Okay.
That's a shot.
Yeah.
Right? Because you know what new fills prices are going for today. And we're sitting on it and not selling it until X year.
Yeah.
And that's that is a go big or go home shot.
Yeah.
Right? Because we are, for some of these distilleries, their single largest client. Mm-hmm. Right? Because with a lot of these distilleries that are starting up or even that have been around for a couple of years, their brands are not carrying that kind of weight.
Yep.
And they have all this money invested in infrastructure and stuff. And so buying all that liquid and parking it.
Yeah. Well, and that's something like I went through the exercise of this, and we've talked about it on multiple podcasts, but it's like a barrel, because of the scarcity of wood, or the scarcity of good wood. It's not that there's not enough oak. There's plenty of oak. It's just, it's not old enough, or the quality's not there for ISC or for Kelvin or whomever to go and cut it down to make the right barrel to produce the best liquid on the back end, right? There's got to be both ends of the side there. But I mean, barrels are $1,000, for a new fill, like, or $1,200, and depending on where you're going. And then finding distillation is even harder on top of that, because the growth projections for the people that have kicked up their new column still or their new pot still, like they're projecting 5-6 years down the road, and they need one client to be their collaboration. And then from there, they can produce their own stuff and sit on it and grow.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Because we're doing contracts right now, some of them into 2030.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's how far we have to think. But in order to know where it's going, where our supplies are, in order to be able to get great pricing, right? And we want to do 100% what's right by the distillery so that they do it by us, right?
Yeah.
So we're really taking that 3-pointer for long-term stability in what we do and what we provide.
Yeah, and I think it's straight masterful to be able to have these companies like yourself, and you all being kind of the industry leader There's others, right? Don't get me wrong. Like there's a couple others, but being an industry leader and having 200,000 plus barrels, like that can backstop a lot of the people that we know, Scott, right? From a craft perspective, as they go, and you've mentioned the bigger guys, but like I see some of these people hit 5 years, 6 years old, and they get lucky and they just hit it big, and then all of a sudden they're like, I don't have any 6-year-old 73, 17, whatever the math is on that 20. I mean, if they have some obscure mash bill, you probably have it.
We probably do, and they know that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's okay. I mean, I look around the room here, and I look at all the brands. I go, "Yep, that's mine. That's mine." Not mine, but they're ones that
they're partners.
Use our liquid, right? And I think nobody can forecast 100% exact up or down.
Yep.
What they're going to do. By doing what we do, we kind of provide balance.
Yeah.
Right. If your sales are not doing well and you need to sell some liquid to generate cash, maybe we buy the liquid. Works the same way, going through the roof. You don't have the liquid, we can supply it.
Yeah. And it's good to have that partnership at both ways, right? Because you never know.
You never know. Look, we've had people call us because there was a glass shortage during COVID and nobody could get bottles, but we had a bottle relationship. They couldn't get corks. They couldn't. I mean, there were other things. It's not just about the liquid. Because of so many different things that we have touched over the years, it's provided great relationships for us across the board in the whole category.
No, I think that makes a ton of sense. Do you all see yourselves, I guess 2-part question. One will kick down the can. I'm just in my head. There's 2 parts to this question. Well, the first part is, with seeing the growth in American whiskey, and I'm saying American whiskey specifically because we're big American single malt nerds. Like with the growth of American whiskey, do you see that moving into other world spirits? I know you all have invested heavily in Irish. Do you see Irish, Scottish, Japanese, Taiwanese, Indian? Like, do you see those spirits becoming a category where the world just catches on fire for whiskey? Or is it going to be limited to like the main producers that are now?
So I guess a couple of thoughts.
Yeah.
One is I believe American single malt is going to be the next big thing. I have been preaching that for a couple of years now.
We do too.
And I have made investments in that space. And if somebody wanted 6 or 7-year-old American single malt, I have it.
All right.
So, but
that's the next Hopmayer.
But it may be. It may be. But so if you look at have you seen? Do you know Julie Macalo? Have you seen Macalo single malt out there?
I have not.
Julie's product. It's mainly in New York and some hoity-toity restaurants. But she gets $2,000 a bottle for the American single malt, and she can't keep it in stock.
She's a restaurateur.
No, she came out of I think it's the perfume industry. And she has a huge malt collection at her house, and decided to do this on her own with her husband. It's $1,995 on the bottle, right? And she is making some in Kentucky. I'm not going to say where, but she is making some. But she's also done some of this sourced, because there's no way you can launch a 7-year-old single malt if you didn't put it down 7 years ago, unless you come to me. So I think that. American single malt, I would agree, depending on how the TTB rules on different things, right, has a unique opportunity, I believe, to be bigger than bourbon. Because I think if you look at the Scotch category, it's already bigger. So I think there's a great opportunity to create something really cool within American single malt. When I look at the other space, certainly Irish whiskey's growing leaps and bounds. Yeah. And even if you dial out Jameson, what I saw happening here in the bourbon space is happening in Ireland now, right? With these new people coming in, and they're doing cool things with Irish whiskey, and they're the barrel bourbons of the world are in the are happening over in Irish whiskey. And to me, Brindiamo got in before that, right? And so we're in it. To the point where some of the larger distilleries now in Ireland want to buy from us because we laid it down a while ago. Yeah. So I think Irish whiskey's got great legs. It's also much more approachable for females because it's used wood,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lighter product. So I think it works better for them. In terms of Scotch, look, Scotch is always going to be Scotch. It's always going to, I always look at it as my dad's drink or my grandpa's drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the problem that has plagued Scotch that still hasn't been answered yet is that they haven't figured out how to market and make it cool.
Yeah.
Right. And we do a really good job of that here in America. They haven't, I don't think, gathered together to do that. And if they figure that out, I think Scotch has big legs to come back out again.
I think Scotch has good appeal to the sophisticated bourbon drinker who understands flavoring grains like malt.
If you can pronounce the names.
Correct. And well, it's one of these things. So we've had Dalmore on, we've had the Macallan on, and it's still to this day, it's a guy in a 3-piece suit. And kudos to them. Like, I wish I could look that cool in a 3-piece suit. I feel like I'd look like a turd. The guy who's trying too hard. And so their whiskey's outstanding. But the other problem is they think it's all Lafroig or Lagavulin. And so, Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation made, Scotch probably the coolest thing, but like not many people can stand peated Scotch or turfed Irish whiskey. And so you have to the general consumer perception. Yeah. And the general consumer doesn't understand the Scottish map of where Speyside versus the Highlands and all those things. And if they could do that, Highland Park's probably done the coolest with the Vikings and all that stuff to make it kind of cool. It's just really hard to figure out how you take all the old history and make it cool for the normal consumer.
That's what I think the challenge is there for it. I think the Scotch we have, our inventory goes up to 43 years of some barrels. But a 43-year-old barrel of Scotch today is worth 70,000 euros.
Yeah.
Right. So it's crazy in terms of that market and what you can do. I was just offered some Scotch by somebody somewhere that you may have just mentioned. I'm not going to say who, and it's $1 million a barrel. Whew. Right. So
how many liters are left?
I have it on my phone. If I look, I can tell you exactly how many bottles will come out of it at what proof.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's the other thing is barrel proof Scottish whiskey has not been a thing.
No, it's been lower. It's certainly lower.
It's a delicate product that comes to market, but to make it cool in America, you probably want to have 100 proof, at least. Do something different, right? If for these American releases, they've done some really cool things to use maybe more ex-bourbon or balance the sherry out to make it more of a bourbon profile. And they're it's 86. Well, the standard American drinker probably right now that is hard into whiskey is probably a 115 drinker.
I think that I don't know that they're that high. I think that the guys that we may deal with regularly
probably.
I think when I look at the data, it's 97.
Yeah.
Right. But that's taking everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that makes sense. Me and him 100, 110.
No, I'm a 124 easy all day. Right? I love it. Love it right out of the cask. Right.
Yeah.
Unfiltered, everything.
You like a little barrel char?
I actually like the little wood pieces in it. I think it's awesome. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's what'll go on with Scotch. But I think the Japanese whiskey category is much more exciting.
Yeah.
Than the rest of that at this point, if you can get your hands on it, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very cool and pretty unique. I don't really, India's a great market, but it is not something that we can dabble in because we can't enter the market affordably.
Yeah.
It's a very, very difficult, just as Thailand or anywhere else. It's very cost prohibitive for us to do anything there.
Yeah. Am I missing any? I guess Australia would be the other whiskey market.
We supply some bulk to Australia or half. It ends up going into Diet Coke and bourbon in a can pre-mixed, right? It's not going in
Yeah.
because the costs of shipping and the taxes and the import and export just makes what we do really, really expensive.
Yeah.
You know, we ship bulk liquid from here to bottlers overseas, and they bottle there, right? Because the shipping of the glass and the air and the water is too expensive. So they actually will bottle the liquids over there. Still can't get to the right price points for certain markets, but, you know, Europe, EU, all that we can get to.
Can you call that bourbon when it's bottled elsewhere?
Bottled in the United Kingdom, distilled in Kentucky.
Okay.
Right. So because that's the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as it's disclosed.
I don't think there's any requirement off the top of my head. And again, I'm not a TIB expert, TTB expert, but I think, I don't believe it has to be bottled here. It just has to say.
I don't think it does.
It just has to say imported from.
Import. Yeah.
Right,
So I think there's that one in England, right, or Scotland, where they took the barrels from Kentucky, aged it 1 year here, then kicked it over to Scotland, and that's where it aged.
What was the name of that?
But they said Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey rested in England or whatever. They used some type of interesting marketing for that. But I think that's cool, like doing experimental things, because to make it Kentucky bourbon, all it's got to do is rest 1 year here in Kentucky, then you can rest it wherever else you want to.
I think they can do some cool things. I think it really becomes, you know, when you're going overseas like that, you're competing with local produced products. So you're competing with really great Irish whiskey that's affordable and really great Scotch that's affordable.
It's the same thing here.
Right.
It's like when I can get my Kentucky bourbon on the shelf, I'm not going to reach for a $90 bottle of Scotch. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
I will if it looks really cool. If it's a great package and great design.
So, you know, that's the thing is, like, I think
I'm a sucker for good packaging.
I am a sucker for good packaging. I don't even need an age statement, but if that bottle, damn, that's cool.
That's going to look good on the bar.
I take one to open and one to store.
Yeah.
So
I'm right there with you. So my son's name's Jameson, funny enough. And I don't think I'd ever take a drink of Jameson before he was born. And I was at the Total Wine. I was like, is there a Jameson 21 that I can have? Like, I want that. Because when he turns 21, how cool would it be for him to have a Jameson 21? And haven't found it today. But that's the goal, is to find a Jameson 21. And I've already told the people at Penelope, because my daughter's going to be named Penelope.
Very cool.
That I need you all to figure out a way to save a barrel.
Well, you know, there's always a way.
time.
I do have 21-year-old Irish whiskey in barrels still.
Yeah.
I think we're talking to the right guy.
Yeah, I think we're talking to the right person.
If you needed one bottle, you know, that came as a gallon sample, I think probably arrange that. You can print off on your printer over here the label you want, and you can have your Jameson 21 all day.
I think I found a good friend. No, but like those are the things like I think about. Like the world category of spirits has been open to me because of Scott and his love for craft whiskey during the pandemic. And I literally say this every time, but Scott hunted every craft brand that there was, and there's more popping up, and we can't keep up with them all. So I'm sorry, craft brands. We'll get to you, I promise.
I was gonna say, I had a good checklist at first, and I threw that away because it just
changes every day.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it just went by, and you know, I think that's what's opened us up to world whiskeys, because you get into the American single malt, or you get into the rye whiskeys, and then you see what Irish is doing with Irish and rye, and then you see what, you know, the single grain has done, and then you just explore. And I think that's what's cool.
Canada.
There is Canadian, and it is a very interesting landscape. Found North, I think, has probably done the most interesting thing, or Hunt and Gather has also done some cool stuff. But like when you get the older aged stated Canadian.
Unadulterated.
Yeah. Canadian whiskey, man.
I can't tell you who we supply it to or who we have, but, you know, we bought a ton of some old Canadian, and we had to re-engineer bringing it across the border in barrels, because we only wanted to bring it in barrels, and they haven't done that in years because of the mafia and the bootlegging and everything, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted us to bring it in tankers, And I said, no, if we can't bring it in barrels,
we
don't want it. And we had to submit all kinds of crazy stuff, and it worked. And we finally got them over in barrels.
That's
there's
crazy.
a will, there's a way, and a good lawyer.
Yeah.
Or 10.
Lawyers.
Yeah, or 10.
Yeah, you're talking to a lawyer over there. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. And so, as you all think about the world spirits, and then I'm bringing back to my second part. Do you all ever think about being like that one-stop shop for that brand? Like, hey, if you need bottling in a pinch, will you ever like approach bottling or packaging or shipping for people in the long run? Or is it really just going to be all about what's in the barrel? Never say never, I guess.
I think that's a really good question. I think, we certainly help if some like Four Branches that is launching, right? Soup to nuts, we helped them from day one, right? On everything. Got them their, introduced them to their bottler, introduced them to the packaging people, introduced them to Double Dime, introduced them to everybody across the board to help get them going. We do that for free.
Yeah.
We don't charge for it. We don't add percentages on. We just want to be a good partner because in the end, we hope that they'll buy whiskey from us at some point in time, right? And so we do that for good. In terms of Brindiamo and what we see, what we're trying to do is pretty much own this bulk space that we do really well and the pieces that are in it. So storage.
Yeah.
Years ago, I would have never thought we'd buy rickhouses, right? Today, that's not the case. Today, we're in it, right, and storing for ourselves. We have probably the first time everybody will hear it, but we've now created an insurance program with a very large insurance carrier, and I suspect we will have one of the most effective rates for insurance on barrels in the world because Brindiamo, our warehouses are all over the globe. So if a tornado comes and hits one location, it's not going to get the other 12.
Yeah.
So your loss ratio goes down. If you have a tornado here and it hits BBC or Wilderness or something, it's going to take a ton out.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to us, so it luckily reduces our rates. So we're in that space. We do some barrel financing now, right?
Okay. So
those are all new things for us. I don't think we'd ever. I never say never, right? I'm not sure we would buy a bottler. I'm not sure that we would want to buy a design company or anything like that. Would we buy a distillery? Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, we've really been good at not being competitive to our clients. Would we buy a tank farm? Right? Sure.
Yeah.
Would we buy a cross-stocking operation to be able to take, to fill barrels for people if it came in tanker cars? Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But, and I think that space for Brindiamo, is $1 billion window in revenue. So I think that's plenty. And I think if we can do that and do it really well, it's great.
Well, and then you're not competing with your partners that you're getting the liquid from either.
We're not competing with them, and we're adding value.
Yeah.
Right. Everything, because now if you want to buy in tanker and we're always worried, well, how am I going to get it back in a barrel? Where am I going to fill it? We can do that for you.
Yeah.
Right. So that stuff works. And I think, look, the good and the bad, right? MGP bought Lux. It was a great move for them, right? But for me, all their brands on the shelf are competing against the people that they want to supply.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have that battle.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, your guys' Rolodex is just, it's too deep to, sometimes other people can do it better. So you allow them to do it.
I think we know what we do well today, and I just want to focus on that.
Yeah.
We don't need to be everything to everybody. But nothing's to say that we wouldn't make an investment in rum. Nothing's to say that we wouldn't make an investment in tequila, right? Or that we have. There are things that we do in other spirits. Like I'm trying to learn as much as I can about cognac and Armagnac.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because I think there's an opportunity there to buy liquid, that ages
Yeah.
and hold on to it and create value. Right? So things like that, rum's a little tougher, tequila's tougher, but cognac and Armagnac, old barrels go for a ton.
Yeah. Well, and they're out there. Cause we know, like, just look at Raj Bhakta's brand, right? Like, he came out with a Armagnac that was 50 years old. He's like, we go back in this cave and there's like 100-year-old Armagnac, but also at the other end, it's like, hey, once you dump those barrels, then that could help your Scotch or Irish brands, right? Because then people are like, oh man, this is our ancient Armagnac barrel, and I could do some really cool finishing things with it. So it's like it's a double win if the barrel's in good shape.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of cool things with that, and so
Yeah.
I think those are the things that that I see us really doing.
Yeah, world spirits are super interesting to me, just because the landscape is changing, the world is getting smaller day by day. And how you're connected to that. And so being able to have your tentacles into the world whiskey is super interesting.
We haven't really talked about this, but how big is Brindiamo Group?
It's a good size. I mean, in people-wise?
Yeah, people.
I think, I never know anymore, but I think we're up to 17 people today.
It's not very big.
Yeah.
Well, look at it this way. Was it 9 months ago, a year? It was just me and one person over my garage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was looking at your website before I came over here, and I think I counted 10 or 12. But that's
it
people
changed.
on the website. That's people on the website.
We hired 2 people, so I mean, it keeps changing.
So that's
right?
people on the website. But yeah, it's like you guys are touching a lot of things. I mean, it's
We used to do all this, just me, and another person, and operations. I mean, managing all of these barrels in an Excel spreadsheet, and it was crazy. But luckily, we have a great guy came in, Jeff Steinberg, and he brought a great team with him, and we hired people out of Green River and Beam and you name it, and we assembled a really great, experienced team, and it's allowed me to step out of operations and focus on building the brand and building the company and trying to make the guesses for what's next.
Yeah. Well, and that's where you're going to be better suited to, like, if you're bogged down by the day by day, it's hard to be able to experience what's out there and get a really good grip on that opportunity. So I think that's
Drives me crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
I am not good at managing people.
Yeah.
That is not my skill set.
Yeah.
But I can find you great American single malt tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, you years of connections, right? Like we didn't get into who is Jeff from a, holistic perspective, but needless to say, I'll just give you the short story. He's the who's who of know somebody because he was in on Bardstown. He was in on High West. He was in on a lot of people before they were popular. And he commented, the first thing he said when he walked in, he's like, you got a lot of High West stuff.
He's a little fan of High West.
Yeah, he's like, you're a fangirl. And I was like, yes, I am. I won't tell you how much I've spent on them, but we'll just keep it moving.
The wife might be listening.
Yes.
Do they give you free meals in the restaurant?
They did give me 40% off and free cocktails.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, I thought that was a great deal.
That was a great deal.
And the last time I was there, I took pictures and then
New one or the Blue Sky or the old one?
The new one, the saloon.
The one at the ski slope by
Yes.
the park. Okay, so that's the old one.
Yes.
So Blue Sky's the new one.
The new restaurant.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I love the saloon. So
Yeah,
actually,
saloon's great.
Oh yeah. So me and my wife were out in Park City for our 3-year anniversary, something like that. And we went out there and they were closed. And I called Caitlin, who's their PR person. I'm like, hey, I see y'all are open. I can't find a reservation. They got us a reservation, gave us great. They dropped off bottles of whiskey. Like I can't say enough about how nice they were to us.
That was the end of 21, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was because I had COVID.
That's right. I remember that.
I got the COVID while I was there. Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And the food was great. And then I went back out last year for a work trip. And just, if you fly into Salt Lake, just make the hour drive up to Park City. Like it's incredible. And I was like, hey, like, you all have any cocktails on the menu? Would love to write up something. I just took pictures and wrote about their cocktails and their cocktail menu. And they gave me 3 free cocktails.
It's awesome. My favorite dessert of all time ever was at High West. They did a grilled Krispy Kreme donut with whiskey, vanilla, ice cream, and caramel sauce on it. And I was like, that's it. I'm done. I didn't care about the rest of the meal. That was it.
I just got diabetes thinking about it.
It is killer.
But that sounds amazing.
So my wife makes a lists of all these like comments I make. And one day I was having hot fudge sundae, but I got caramel syrup. And I said, caramel syrup is highly underrated. And I agree with what you just said. Like,
it was great. It was great.
But I don't like coffee. I just tried that again. I tried to get a caramel vanilla something from Honey Brothers.
No, you just
coffee sucks.
Black coffee or nothing.
No, coffee sucks. It's bad. It's bitter. It's nasty.
It is nasty. Makes me. I drink it in the morning because it makes me feel like that's what I'm supposed to do at my age. So it's the only reason I wake up and do it.
Oh man, I just like a nice gallon of water in the morning. Just flush the system.
That's what coffee does.
No. Coffee's gross.
I haven't drank coffee in a year and a half.
Good job.
Really?
He's a recovering barista.
I'm a recovering retired barista, college barista. No, it ruined me. It got me addicted to coffee, and I was like, I gotta stop. But whatever.
No, do you drink caffeine still?
I'll drink like the occasional like sweet tea or like soda, but maybe like 2-3 a week.
So here's the horror story. You ready?
Yeah.
Outside of sitting here like this, I drink all my bourbon, no matter what it is, mixed with Diet Coke.
Oh, that's not bad.
All the time.
As long as you're drinking bourbon.
All the time.
So do you mix American single malt then?
I do not, because I'm still, I don't have
learning.
enough of it, and I'm still trying to learn.
Yeah.
I not that I know everything about bourbon, but I really don't know enough about the single malt yet. And there's so much to learn in that space. Like I can, we're drinking 2 different 12-year-olds here, and there's a wild difference between the two.
Yeah.
Right. And I can pick that up and everything, but I'm not there yet on the single malt. I can pretty much do it in Irish whiskey, but I'm still learning. So I won't mix it yet.
Yeah.
And I won't put ice. I mean, I don't do anything to it because I'm just trying to learn it.
I don't think I've ever put an American single malt on anything.
I've not. And I've probably, I would say I'm up to like 25 different single malts, like in American, which
it's probably pretty much all of them at this point.
It might be.
Sometimes I like to mix them though.
Yeah,
like the different finishes.
It's crazy. Like it's really cool. Man, the American single malts is really cool, and I love that. Like there's like a Lost Lantern out there that's like independent bottling. Like that's really cool. Like. And that's helping that movement be quicker to market.
Well, remember, there were guys doing this kind of stuff like Derek Bell.
Yeah.
Right. Corsair and those guys, Triple Smoke and all those kinds of things that a long time ago that they started to kind of play with this
Dabble
stuff.
in it.
So there's a lot of different ones out there and a lot to learn because, it's not just coming from Kentucky. Yeah. I think for me so far, the best of the single malts I've tried, American single malts, are coming from the Pacific Northwest.
Amen.
Yep, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the next, weirdly, like, I think it's Texas. I think Texas has figured out single malt.
I think that once they figure out their aging techniques, they're going to be up there.
I think Texas got started in it earlier.
Yes.
Right.
So they figured it out more.
So they figured it out earlier.
Yeah.
But definitely places out Pacific North, like Bull Run and places like that, make great single malt.
Well, and I think what's going to be cool is the terroir. Yes, the nerdy term of.
I never say it right.
Yeah, I don't either.
That's pretty good.
It was good.
Yeah, asked me to say Mahanganila.
Mahanganila. What? Mahanga. What?
Yeah, what? Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Screwed up.
Yeah, the Pennsylvania rye.
Monongahela.
Yeah, Monongahela. It's just the terroir of American single malt is going to be cool because you're going to have the Pacific Northwest, and that includes down to San Francisco. Yes, I know that you wouldn't consider that, but yes, it does. And then you have like the Southwest part of that, and then you have your like Middle East of the United States. So like Kentucky, Indiana, Virginia is going to be their own unique thing, and then you have your up north that is going to produce a single malt at some point. And while I haven't seen it yet, somebody in Minnesota or in that area's gotta have to, like, they're gonna, like, all that stuff's coming from there.
It's already being made in Michigan.
Yeah.
So in upstate Michigan, I know.
Yeah. So like that area is going to come to, like, so you're going to have these corners. It's going to be a lot like Scotch, but you'll have to learn the map a little bit of how it tastes and all those things. But like all the mesquite smoke stuff, like that's going to serve your PD, folks. And it's it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's super nerdy. Like, Kentucky bourbon is great, and it's king. It's going to be king to me because why not? It's Kentucky bourbon.
It's about access.
Yeah. Like you said, American single malt, it's been tough because it's been so expensive at a younger age statement. But as it grows, it'll become a little bit cheaper, and they can buy more grain, more things, as you know, economies of scale.
I said that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
When bourbon was more reasonably priced.
Not anymore.
So bourbon has climbed up there with some of the younger American single malts that it's comparable. It's easier to buy a $70 American single malt at 2, 4, 5 years when some of our bourbons are 6 years old and they're $80, $90, $100.
Yeah. I like those prices.
Yeah.
Those are good prices.
Those are good prices.
Those are good prices to have. But I mean, it is, look, there's lots of factors that are doing that, right?
Yeah.
Scarcity drives price. And with the barrel shortages and the glass shortages and and COVID and and the huge growth and international shutting down and then coming back on, and it's made a big difference.
So we've covered a ton of ground around the sourcing aspect of this, and what it means to be a world producer. But one of the other things you're doing is you all are investing in Bardstown in Kentucky, and mainly right in the heart of downtown Bardstown, with the Brindiamo Penthouse. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what that will mean to the community?
Sure. I mean, look, I had been looking for a long time to find a way to invest in Bardstown and help educate anybody that came into town, from servers and restaurants all the way up to us, about Kentucky bourbon, right? And what happens in Bardstown. And Kim Houston, who, Nelson County, is a good friend and love her to death. And she had told me about her idea on the Bourbon Capital thing, and got introduced to Sam Lacey. And we tried to figure out how Brindiamo could support their efforts on a go-forward basis to create, a landing place for the Bourbon Capital Guild to do all they needed to do in a bougie, grandiose style, right? Because that's what they needed, right? They need that place where we all want to go, right? That is totally cool, that is not run down, that is just, you feel like you want to go there because it's exciting, right? And I said, look, let Brindiamo fund it.
Yeah.
And we'll make the investment and do it. Don't really want anything from it. We want to help. We want it to grow. We want it to be part of the community and plant a flag for all that this can be. And, Sam has done a great job with the design and that building, needed a lot of updating.
Yes. So if you were part of the Bourbon Festival circa 2 years ago, that at the penthouse of Spalding Hall, if you were a VIP, you went upstairs and it was hot, very hot.
Yeah, like window units.
Yes.
Of AC.
And it was very tight. It was a very tight space. That building is old, but it is the center of Nelson County. So
with a great museum downstairs.
Correct. And if you have not seen the renderings of what they're doing here, like, they look killer. Yeah. So, and I know process is underway on revitalizing that space. Is that, if I'm correct?
It is. It's well underway. I have tried to stay as far out of it and let Sam and the team do it because that's what they're doing. But there are some really cool kick-ass elements in there that they have created and that they have gotten other partners within, the bourbon space to give discounts on construction and some of the other things because they do work at the distilleries and they do this. So it's kind of pulled, like, he's been able to pull a collective of other people together to pull this off. And I am so looking forward, because I've saw the same space you've seen, to see what this will be a couple of months from now when it's totally done.
Yeah, so it should be live for National Bourbon Day, which is June 14th. Thank you, Double Diamond and Angela, for letting us know the exact date. It's also Flag Day.
There's so many holidays anymore.
Yeah, so make sure you fly your favorite flag that day. And if you think about that, and you know Angela, make sure you wish her a happy belated birthday, because it'll already be her birthday. I got you, girl.
There you go. That's good. And it'll have new air conditioning.
New air conditioning.
No in-window air conditioning.
Central air conditioning.
Big time.
Central air conditioning. The bathrooms were all redone.
What? You had to go to the Porta-John last time I was there.
Yeah, so I mean, there's I think they're putting in bourbon lockers, and I mean, they're really doing it up really great.
So the Bourbon Capital Guild will be kind of the people that book the space or that kind of manage it day to day, right?
Yeah. Again, while we have made the donation and the funding for it, they're really managing it, and a lot of the space is geared towards education, right? And certainly they will host their meetings up there, monthly meetings and things like that. I also think the Kentucky Bourbon Festival's offices will still remain up there as well. So Dave Mendel and all that team up there will be doing all of that in this gorgeous new space. And now when the festival is there and you go up there for the VIP thing, I think it's going to feel a lot more VIP.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. I mean, that the space was ripe for a redesign, a refresh, and I mean the history there. Like the Oscar Getz Museum alone, if you've not seen,
it's crazy.
It's
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like you just go there and you just like, whoa, there's that label, and that's on the shelf today, but it looks a little different. But there's that label, and there's that name that,
and
keeps
there's still
appearing.
more coming out, right?
Yeah,
like I always go there and I go, oh, there's the original chicken cock labels, right?
Yeah,
the bottles, those are so cool. Or the next one, and you're like, oh wait, this one just relaunched again, or this one, and it's Kentucky Par, or any of these that keep coming back around, but they're all there, and it's really, really cool.
And speaking of chicken cock,
we just did an episode with them.
Yeah, it should be out now.
No, with Will.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Marty's a good friend, and I've been involved in one way or another there.
Yeah.
So chicken cock has been on our podcast twice now.
Yeah, we've had Greg
on early on episode 99.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're in the 220s.
And then we just had on Will, their national brand ambassador.
Waited till 220 for me? That really hurt my feeling.
Well, get on your PR team.
Our list is long but prestigious.
Yeah. Our list is craft.
I do love that chicken cock bottle, though. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the history of that brand.
Even as silly as the name might sound, it's just cool.
It's just totally, totally cool.
Yeah. But no, we didn't wait till it's almost 2:30, really. But no, it's a progression of our podcast too.
Yeah.
It's like we started this out purely as hobbyists. Purely. Not that we're experts, but we started this out as three guys sitting around, sipping on whiskey, occasionally sipping on
something good,
something else, and maybe smoking a cigar. And it's just developed. I mean, that's the way our podcast has grown and grown and grown. And like the connections we've made, kind of brings us to like this. It's like Brindiamo Group is one of the most well-connected. I don't know what your title would be, but whiskey companies. I mean, out there, it's
liquid provider.
Well, like driving over here, I was like, one of the questions I'm going to ask him is like, what? Like when you go out there and you're like, you see all your babies out there. I know they're not your brands, but they're brands that you either helped create or helped supply spirits to. You're like, you look out there and you're like, oh well, that's I love to see that brand on the shelf now. It's like, how does that feel? Like when you're out there and even in somebody's house, like Jake's, and you're looking around and you're like, I kind of recognize some of these bottles.
As Eleven said once in Stranger Things, are you a proud papa?
It's pretty fucking cool to walk into a liquor store and see all the different elements.
Yeah.
You know, and the things we do, but I don't create this stuff. There are people with these huge marketing genius brains that come up with these ideas and stuff. They come to me after.
Yeah.
Right. And all I try to do is guide them through some of the pitfalls that I myself have gone through as a brand owner in a past life. And we may help them with their liquid or find them better places to go for things they need. But from a baby standpoint, it's what I did here when I walked in there. I go, yep, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. They're not mine, but we are actively engaged in helping those companies find the best liquid to be able to bring it to the shelf. Yeah. And it is cool. But I also go through and I go, wait a second. I didn't know this one. Where are they getting it from? Where are they getting it? You know? And so I'm flipping. For me in a store, I walk in and I flip the bottles around and I'm looking at the back to try and figure out, because I don't know those guys. They need to know us. And I snap pictures of them and I send them to my sales guys and I go, WTF.
Yeah.
Right? So
how'd you miss this one?
That's what happens more.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's so cool because I feel like the term sourcing like gets people on edge, and it's like this dirty term. And I compare it to like blended scotch, because like here we say mingling the whiskey. I'm like, get over yourself. Everyone's blending. One of the world's top whiskeys year in, year out is Elijah Craig Small Batch. That is a blended bourbon.
Didn't BBC just win now Origins was the first one that I think was straight off of theirs, but they've been doing collaborations and blends
years
from day one.
Yes.
So there's sourcing. It is a necessary business for everybody because of the ups and downs the industry faces, and because, it costs so much money to buy new fills today, sit for 8 years, right? That cash that's going away, sitting there that you can't invest in your brand, that you can't use for marketing, that you can't spend to grow it. By doing some of what we do, we're actually providing cash flows to these businesses that they otherwise would go out of business on.
Well, and you're growing with these brands. So like, I'm not saying that BBC and you do anything after the fact. I'm just going to use them as an example because we were talking about it. BBC grows, and you've talked to Steve and the team there, and you're like, hey, I want to lay down additional barrels of that because you bought capacity on the still, because that's who they are, right? They're a collaborative distiller. And so you're producing with them. And so as they run out of Origins, which they have done, like sold through like hotcakes, because it was going to be the hottest release in 2023. Like, then you can be like, oh, hey. Like, and I'm not saying
we do that all the time, right?
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
you miscalculated. We got you.
We got you. We knew that this was gonna be a thing.
But it's not just like that. It's all the customers that come to BBC, right?
100%.
Or these other ones, or they go to Logstill, or they go to any of these places that they don't have any barrels that they can sell.
Yeah.
To give these people to make 4 branches, right?
Yeah.
There's no liquid. They have to find it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really important. And if you think about it, the Bordeaux exchange, right, has been around for what, since the 1600s, something like that. The trading of wine that ended up around that. Why is that? What's wrong with that, right? It exists all around the world for lots of different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think it provides unique balance, and it really it helps. Now look, we are not inexpensive, right?
No, for sure.
It is not I never tell people that we are going to be the low-cost provider.
Yeah.
But if you need the liquid, like you said that mash bill, and you need it at 7 years, okay.
I got it.
How many barrels you need?
Yeah.
Right? That's generally what we are able to do.
Yeah. And I think that the term sourcing, the term blending, the term, like any of the terms that are like off-putting, like people just get used to it. Yeah. Like it is a part of the experience. It's not like a distributor. That's like the government created that. No, like this is actually an opportunity where someone saw a gap in the industry and said, hey, we can help if we help provide them capital up front. And then there's extra distillate on the back end to fill in the gaps or create new brands. Because creating a distillery is, just look at the money Pernod Ricard just put in with Jefferson's. $400 million. Like to create a distillery and an experience, you're not getting out for $250 million.
I mean, look, I always try to, I don't like the word broker. I don't like the word sourcing. We're a raw material supplier.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you remember, when I try to describe what we do to people and what we do for people, I sit there, do you remember Trading Places with Murphy, and he was trading frozen orange juice, and they were trying to corner the frozen orange juice, right? Orange juice concentrate. That's what we do. Yeah. Right? This is no different. It's in the, I'm dating, my age, but a long time ago, it's the way bonds were traded in the world. You had a phone in this ear and a phone in this ear, and the guy was making the market in between. That's now a lot of the barrels we're sitting on for a long time, but that is in essence what we do. There's nothing dirty about it. It's not, it happens in everything. Yeah. Lumber, barrels. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's the same thing today in barrels. Yeah. So new and used. It's just what it is. I think that it's some of the hoity-toity collectors of bottles will go, well, that's sourced, right? Well, yeah, it still tastes good. Yeah. But how else are they going to bring it to market?
Well, it's been interesting too over the past like four plus years that we've been doing this. It's like people, even collectors, have identified some of the sources and are like, oh, well, like whiskey of the year on this date was this. Do you know who was sourcing those barrels also? Yeah. Oh, let's go out and find that. That's been an interesting dynamic.
Oh, man, it's been crazy.
I didn't see coming. Now, there are still some people that are just prudes about it and say, oh, it's sourced whiskey. But I think as a consumer, my thing is just tell me. Yeah. Like, don't tell me you made the whiskey. Don't tell me that
you weren't in existence 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So, that's right.
It's like, don't tell me, like, don't act like you made the whiskey. You ran the still. Like, if you didn't make it, that's great. But if you've got a great story and there's an excellent backstory to the whiskey that you sourced, and tell me that. And that's what we do with this podcast too. Yeah. But it's like, I think as a consumer, the whole like, oh, it's just sourced whiskey. It was because it got a bad name because there were some bad actors that just weren't transparent at all.
Yeah. And how do you feel about bad actors? They're terrible in technology.
There are certain distilleries that we refuse to do business with to this day because we determined they were bad actors in whatever the ways were, and we just wouldn't tolerate it. Yeah. So I think that, in any industry that's hot where there's money to be made, there's always going to be bad actors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what you have to do is trust that there's going to be other people out there looking out for you as well, right? Because there are other people who do what I do. We all know them, right? We all trade right, with them. There are other ones that I won't do, right? And I won't supply and I won't help. So it's you just have to, in doing what we do, you have to trust the people behind the name, right? And that they're going to deliver on the commitments they're making, and that's it. And if they're not, you don't do it. You give them one shot, and that's it. Yeah, you go somewhere else. And I've had people, come to me and say, I was doing it with this and didn't. Can you help us? And it's what you do.
Yeah. Well, and I think at the essence of this, it all goes back to what the bourbon and whiskey community is about. It's about helping brands out.
It is a big family. There is not
1,000%.
I will tell you that people are coming into this business now, like all these investment groups and things like that, and everybody thinks they can walk in and just throw money at it and get access to barrels or get access to production or do this. It doesn't exist like that. That's not real. It took years and years of really being part of the community. And I mean, I live in Nashville, and just coming up here and being part of it and doing good things and doing good deeds and doing all of this before I got access to stuff, right? And you have to become part of that family, and you do good deeds all the way around, and it works. You can't just do it the other way.
It's almost like the triple threat, you know. It's like you got to have good liquid. Like, we all know that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't taste good, it doesn't matter. But you got to be a good company. You got to have a good story.
Yep.
Like, you've got to have all of it.
Good people are key.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just it's critical to this business.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, good people make good business. And the majority of the whiskey business is good people. Just like the majority of the world is good people. And there are a few bad people that make the world look crazy. And so I think whiskey is a microcosm of that. I think whiskey is the best of the best people. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like when I'm interacting with the community, I feel like I'm whole, I'm healthy, it's beneficial. And for those people that are kind of crazy or narcissistic or whatever, and you just write them off and you just keep on moving.
Yep. Some of those that we've written off, come back a year later and say, okay,
Yeah.
no, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. You had the shot, right? And
For sure.
I'm
Because
far too busy for that shit.
I'm far too busy, but because I'm taking something and potentially reselling it, if you screwed the pooch with me on it once, I can't do it again. There's just you can't do that. You can't do it to anybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the old school. Rip the page out of the Rolodex.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, gone.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Their 17-and-a-half-year-old was one of my favorite that they ever did.
I just brought a new 12-year-old to the party.
Dickel 17.
No, never.
We can't talk about Tennessee whiskey. Nobody's sourcing that.
Oh, I'm sure somebody from sourcing Dickel. But we've had a theme. We've had some 12-year-old bourbons tonight. And
That's pretty damn good.
This is my early front runner for whiskey of the year.
It is very smooth, very round.
As soon as I poured it in my glass, it smelled banana.
I didn't get any banana when I first smelled this.
It's much more like tropical.
No old granddad cinnamon.
It's almost like tropical.
I think it's really, really well rounded and balanced, boy.
Yes.
It's like drinking glass. I mean, it's
107 proof. So we've had 118, 124, and this is 107. So different proof points at 12 years. So we've enjoyed 3 different 12-year-old whiskeys at this point. I got to now change my classification. But I thought I'd throw this in the mix just to give you all
That's really good.
a little bit of fun.
It's not as sharp as, but that's because of the proof point.
Yeah.
So, but that's really, really nice.
I figured we were having an intimate moment. I'd pull out something that probably neither of y'all had yet. Getting back, so we just tried another 12-year. I threw a Tennessee whiskey into the conversation because why the hell not? And so it's been a fun day drinking all types of things through the podcast. And so as we kind of round out the evening, we do a disservice if we didn't just kind of like let you highlight Brindiamo from a growth perspective. So where do you see your all selves the next 3 to 5 years? Like I know you said you're projecting out 2030 with some of your contract partners, but where do you see yourselves in the next 3 to 5 years from a whiskey industry perspective or spirits industry perspective?
Look, I think, Brindiamo, certainly in a relatively short period of time, will have 10 to 15 rickhouses here in Kentucky. Certainly expanding the footprints in Ireland and Scotland and Cognac and Armagnac. I think that what I really want Brindiamo to be is one source shopping for the whiskey and bourbon industry, right? I want you to be able to come to us for everything. and one stop. It's kind of like, I don't want to call it going to Target or going to Walmart, but you can find everything you need here, and that's it. But I think that we will bring more solutions to the business. We're working on technology today that reads through the bung on the barrel, will read proof and the fill in the barrel all the time, right? I mean, just different things. I think, every sample that we're bringing in, we run through a gas chromatography, right, and some other things. Brindiamo will be, in the next couple of years, the single largest repository of chemical data off of samples from around the world.
Yeah.
So just imagine if you want to create a brand. What happens today, you mix this, you blend this, you sample it right, you get to a place you like, and you say, okay, and you do that, and it goes. What if you came to me and you said, I want something that tastes exactly like this 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. And I could punch up in my computer and go, well, I got barrels number XXXXX that are within the chart of the chemical makeup of exactly what that sample is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? Just think of the way that would change, good and bad. But if I can be the largest repository of data sets like that, it will change the industry.
I mean, if I could punch in a number and get my small batch, like, it's big time. We created a small batch with Penelope.
Yeah.
And that was ridiculously hard. Like, me and you went back and forth, and I was like, finally, I'm going to sit down and create a couple, make them, see what you think. And you were like, oh, this is fine. But, like, blending, put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on.
Yeah.
Because that is not easy.
Well, going back to our podcast with Bax's, they're trying to develop a data set of bottles that have been bottled, and like it was distilled on X date, it was bottled on this date, like what was the weather on this date whenever this happened, like the type of data that can be collected about individual barrels.
It's not just the barrels. We go out to the liquor stores and we buy the bottles. Yeah. And so I have sampled this bottle the same way I would sample the casks.
Yep.
So I know if you say, I want to do it like a Jack 12.
Yeah.
Right? I can say Jack 12. And all of a sudden, 260,000 barrels went like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can match close.
Yeah.
It's
your mash bill's this.
But it's going to refine.
Yeah.
Everything.
So you know the mash bill, you know the proof,
Well, you're going to be able to take your inventory and go.
Yeah. So it's like.
These are where.
We're going to be able to target it.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to help everybody get to a point faster, quicker, better.
And just like BMW, bring your wallet if you want 12-year-old Tennessee whiskey. So you're going to have to buy at least 16-year-old whiskey to make this blend. That's what people don't realize is like whiskey eventually doubles. We've avoided this topic of pricing.
You can bring it up. I'm fine with it.
We'll talk about it, right? So like you're almost paying at a given point. This is based upon what I know. So you can tell me how stupid I am. So I'll just, me and you'll have a business conversation here as Scott pours more whiskey. A new barrel, we'll call it 1,000. Easy round numbers.
Okay.
2 years, you're probably going a little bit plus that. So you're like 2,200 for a 2-year-old Kentucky bourbon. Let's go Kentucky bourbon.
Okay.
3 years, you're getting like 3,500. In 4 years, I just heard this firsthand the other day, is like 4,650. So like these numbers are going to, like, as you get to like 6, 7, and 8 years, like they're going to start to double. Like,
it's
called stair stepping.
Let's put some reality in it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of that is based on different volume.
Yeah.
Right. So
if you're doing like hundreds of barrels versus tens and 20s of barrels, different pricing.
I mean, look, the other day we sold 3,000 barrels. The average price was $19.50.
Yeah.
Right. So it depends on, there's lots of variables.
Economy of scale.
Mash bill age, what you need, are you going to take it and are you going to store it with us, insurance, all this stuff. I used to say a barrel doubles every year.
Yeah.
So 1,000, 2,000, 3, and 4. But there does come a point when it doesn't
Double.
You don't get that anymore. So, it's not like you're paying $12,000 for 12-year-old.
No.
Right. So there does come a point, and you start to see when stuff gets to 6-year-old that curve
Plateau.
starts. It's still going up, but it's not going up by the similar amounts.
Yeah.
So I think
Is it kind of the opposite of the hockey stick effect?
it is the opposite of the hockey. It's still
Yeah.
going up, but it's not zinging, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, I think you'll see in the marketplace the prices, I would suspect, will come down a little bit as lots of these investors come out of barrels that they need to sell. And that could make some changes in pricing. But I think you're plus or minus within $400 of the market, right, at any given time. But again, it will. It doesn't continue. That said, 43-year-old Scotch, 66,000 euros.
Yeah.
Right. 21, 22-year-old Irish whiskey, 25,000 euros.
Yeah.
So there is for super, super rare, it'll get there. And then are you buying, I like to sell on barrels because it's as is, where is, and the barrel goes out. But for people that, are really big buyers that want to buy, you want to buy on a PG basis because then there's no loss.
Yeah.
So the costs come down even different at that. So lots of factors, lots of different pieces in there, and pricing changes every hour.
Yeah.
So we could say today it's $4,000, tomorrow it could be $8,000.
Yeah.
Just because just like any other commodity, that's the way it works.
I mean, it's just like corn. Just like just follow corn from a pricing perspective. And this brings out my ag econ, like traditional education. But like you watch dent corn, which is a lot of bourbon is made out of yellow number 2, dent corn. You watch that, and then you can start to figure out some trend analysis of what's happening. Angela producing in my ear, she was like, would you tell your daughter to invest in bourbon and whiskey?
Well, my daughter just joined as a director of marketing, so yes, I would. And she knows that. I will tell you that the soundest and best investments I've ever made in my life have been investing in barrels. And so I never give investment advice to anybody because that's not what we do.
Yep.
But I can tell you for myself, it's been tremendous.
Yeah.
And I do buy barrels every day.
Yeah.
Right? But I also sell them every day. So I think that it is a great business. It's fun. I have never seen the value of a barrel go down as it's aging, right? And because of the wood shortage now and scarcity and, everybody taking up production, and now this whole thing in Nelson County stopping, buildings and everything.
God,
It's going to increase the value of the barrels you have. So buy all you can find right now, right?
Yeah.
But you're not going to find new fills.
Yeah.
So you're going to pay up today to buy 1 and 2-year-old. But then you just hold those till they hit X and you sell them again.
Yeah.
You make great ROI on it. I mean, huge margins, better than market and things like that. But finding new fills is going to be tough.
So that's one of the things that I don't think we've hit on is this is a mini stock market in a way, right? Like,
shh, don't say that too loud.
But like, I'm just saying, like, bourbon and whiskey, do you think there will be like a stock exchange for this commodity? Or do you think bourbon would be an added commodity to the commodity trading scale?
So
I think that's a better question.
I don't think it's a stock exchange, and I don't think it's an SEC thing or anything like that, right? I think that there are ways to create an electronic trading board where buyers and sellers can communicate, like Amazon, right?
Yeah.
You can Amazon it.
Yeah.
That might be doable, but I don't see, not while I'm around, I don't see it hitting the SEC
NASDAQ.
stock market, because there's so many variables in what we do, and granted it is in corn and everything else, but it is beverage alcohol, and it's highly regulated differently because of taxes, because of all of that stuff that make it a little bit more difficult from a compliance standpoint.
So no futures trading in.
We sometimes will sell some of our forward production agreements and barrels and stuff like that at a predetermined price today, buy it in the future kind of thing. But not, look, we know some distilleries today will let you buy a barrel today, take delivery of it in 10 years, right? And in bottle through a licensed retailer down this, licensed liquor store and stuff like that. But I think it's still a very complicated governmental regulated space. I mean, I think if I remember behind personal, income, but behind income tax, the tax on alcohol is the second largest provider of revenue to everything else. So I don't think they want to try and block that.
This like hit the ultimate nerd level.
Yeah. So my background from the University of Kentucky, land grant university, the land grant university of the state of Kentucky.
Is that what these jerseys are for?
Yeah. Played there.
Right.
So the reason I ask all those questions is because one of my thesis project was like, how could you monetize the bourbon market? But then it would be a conglomeration of whiskey together to make it a stock exchange, like per barrel, right? Like the way RFID is going and the way that, people have knowledge of the barrels, but not everyone has done that. And so it's like, as sophistication happens from all of that, I've always wondered in my head, what happens if we went to a straight RFID code that went to every barrel that was government regulated, that like dictated it? But a lot of these companies are either private, or actually the majority of these companies are private. So that makes it almost impossible to do.
Yeah, but you're applying a coin technology, right?
Yeah.
To everything to be able to track it and follow it through the system. So we at Brindiamo, we actually created the app.
Yeah.
I think we spent a couple $1 million creating an app for your phone that does exactly what you're saying. But it after spending it, making it work and doing all the things, it wasn't prudent to turn it on. And so we mothballed it, right? I think that eventually the Amazons of the world will come in and figure some of that out. But again, just like you said, they're not family. So coming in is not going to be easy, right? And recreating this. But I think that with technology and systems and the way things going, that some of this will happen. It's not artificial intelligence, right? It's
no.
But there will be. I think there will be. There needs to be the kind of coin technology that says that that's a real barrel, right? That and that it came from the harvest last week, from corn from this field over this section, because that data.
Yep.
You can't really get today, but if you can, Bitcoin it, right? You can
try.
Tokenization.
Trackable.
Yeah, that's all. That will happen. We're doing it in wine already.
Yep.
So and they're doing it all the way from dirt to the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harvest to bottle. Yeah.
So,
the blockchain is
blockchain's there.
Yeah.
Right. I actually went and did the 4-week course at MIT on blockchain just so I could understand how to. I got a nice thing on my wall. It says I got pencils and a whole thing from them.
Did you get a pocket protector?
No, not a pocket protector, but I did get like the pin that says I went to MIT or something.
Boy.
It was great.
The lapel.
Four-week lapel pin. But it did help me understand the blockchain, and I think that will eventually come in. I think it's probably 5-6 years away. I think there's other technology that needs to happen in rickhouses and things like that. well before the rest of that happens.
I think the consumer is just thirsty for the data. I think everybody's thirsty for data,
period,
in general. But in a product that's 10, 12, 15, 18, 30 years old in some cases, you just want to know, like, authenticity. Like, what led to this moment of me pouring this whiskey into this glass?
And I think that we're not there yet, right? There's I can't even, it's hard enough today, places we store barrels, right? And they end up moving the barrels from one section to the other, and we don't know for a month until the next report comes that they moved them, right?
Yeah.
And so there's other things that are really important for us to know and figure out before it becomes a marketing tool.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I think, something, that will happen, just probably not under my watch. It'll be something that comes up past it.
Yeah. Is it like as people engage in transparency and wanting to know more about whiskey, like, why do you think it's going to take so long, 5 to 6 years to get there?
Because there's no transparency today.
Simple answer for a great question. I love it.
There's no doubt that if you own the barrel, you can walk in the rick house and look at the DSP and know where it came from.
100%.
However,
NDA is a thing.
Once I maybe sell that barrel somewhere, there are people that sand it off and put their own logo on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so there are things that I have seen, again, bad actors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nobody telling me which field of corn that came from, right? Yep. So there are so many, there's so much paperwork and so many things to track up front first.
Yep.
That needs to occur before I think you'll get there.
Well, I think also, like, just doing this for 4 years, short window, right?
But you've been drinking for way longer.
No, I mean, talking to some of the producers early on in the podcast, and they're like, we were tracking this stuff like manually. Everything's manual on paper.
Yeah.
We've got a log, and it's literally a sheet, and it's got barrel number X, and it was distilled on this day. They don't have the data.
Yeah.
Now everything's electronic, and everything is.
But if you have a 20-year-old bottle or an 20-year-old barrel or an 18-year-old barrel, like, you probably don't have that in the computer.
So exactly, because, like, why do you think Heaven Hill just released a 20-year-old mellow corn? Because they lost that barrel for 20 years and they just found it, and we're like, oh, we could do something really creative with this. Nobody said, like, let's nurture this barrel for 20 years.
How's that 12-year-old?
Fucking Hopmayer.
Damn shit's hot.
Got me.
But nobody said, like, let's usher this 20-year-old corn whiskey through the process, and let's nurture this barrel in the back of the rick house in the bottom level. They literally probably lost this barrel or these barrels and said, oh shit, we got to do something with this because eventually it's going to evaporate and we're not going to have anything to do with it. But today, the data that is going into this was distilled. I remember a conversation with New Riff. This barrel was distilled when the weather was 65 degrees.
Yeah.
The humidity was this. The barrel was this. It was delivered on this day. It was 5 days old when we poured whiskey into it.
So that exists in the wine industry today, right? And so they're doing it, but how you take that data and show it to everybody else and translate it and keep track of it and do it all across the board, and
it's not standardized.
There is zero standardization.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very difficult.
Well, and it's like this. It's like,
plus somebody has to spend money to create that standardization, right? And how do I go and convince
those tech geeks love that shit?
Yeah, but
though.
how do you go and convince Sazerac to use what New Riff's doing?
Yeah.
I got to create my own, and they're not. Gonna
I can do it better.
That's right. They're not going to talk to each other, right?
Well,
it's hard.
And you have to have to get into legal terms, you have to have 99% of the time you were signing an NDA. Probably 99.9% of the time you're signing an NDA saying you can't tell them where they came from, but you can have informatics of the mash bill and where it was distilled and all that. And then people can look at it and be like, I can make an inference, but you can't say, hey, it was distilled in Lawrenceburg. It's Wild Turkey.
I will tell you that when I started this, there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Today, as people have been sharing more information, there's only a couple of them that don't want you to tell.
Yeah.
But again, I never understand why people say that. If you're going to sell to me in the original barrel it was in, because it's stamped on the barrel.
Yeah.
So you tell me if you're dumping the barrels, right, and I'm moving them from your facility to anywhere else, what's the paperwork say?
Yeah.
Why is this chain of custody out there?
It came from here, right? There are things that just don't make sense.
Yeah.
We will do whatever the clients on either side want.
Yeah.
But anybody who spends the time can figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are. I always like to say there are no real secrets in this space.
No, there are smarter people in the world that know every mash bill known to Earth, and for God knows what reason, but they will tell you where that whiskey came from.
Yep.
And good on them.
69.5% corn also equals 70% corn on some labels.
Yes, 1,000%. So, we've gone around and around and around and around and around. And Scott, this might contend for our longest podcast ever.
No, Terry Bradshaw might capture that market.
Yeah, true. Well, and that didn't capture the fact that I talked to football with him for like 45 minutes beforehand. To kind of close this down for the night, we've had a few good pours. We've had a great conversation. Where can people, if they want to learn more about Brindiamo and potentially maybe starting their own brand or just learn more about raw materials, where can they find out more about Brindiamo?
The easiest place is just to go to the website.
Yeah.
Brindiamogroup.com. Right.
And how do you spell Brindiamo?
Brindiamo.
There you go.
It's a group I'm sure you could handle, so I won't leave it .com good. But, you go to the website, look at some of the articles, some of the things we posted. We're also have done a lot of YouTubes out there with different people that we talk to, teaching about the industry, talking about some of the partners. We just did one on a tequila project that we do. So you go there and then you just email, right? Any of us will respond, really quick, and we'll either be able to help or we can't, and that's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Like, I love getting into the nerdiness of whiskey. Like, this is awesome. Scott, like, I know you do as well.
Yeah. Nerding out about the stuff we talk about every day.
Yeah. Like we
do it as hobbyists.
Yeah.
It's evolved over the past year, few years, but I like talking nerdy shit all the time.
Yeah. Like this is
stuff that your wife doesn't want to hear about.
This is 3.0. Like this is your junior level class.
Bourbon 300.
Yeah, you've got into school. You've got into your own your little area, and now you're hanging out with all your nerds. Like you're hanging out with all your Gryffindors or your Hufflepuffs.
Are we playing D&D?
Yeah, here we go.
I literally just watched all the Harry Potter movies the other day. My son wanted to watch them. I'm like, you're 3.5. Like, what are we doing here, bud?
I watched Space Jam this past week.
Hey,
the original.
The new one or the old? Yeah,
both.
The old one was
both.
great.
The new one sucks.
Yeah,
I found the old one and I said, we're gonna watch this instead.
Yeah,
yes, good choice. But this is awesome. I love it. And Jeff, I appreciate you hanging out at the office, is what we like to call it, aka my basement, and just talking whiskey with us. For all those who are interested in learning more about Brindiamo, again, go to the website, follow them on social media. They post a lot of great content, like upscale videos. Like you all spend a ton on marketing, and it's beautifully done. And sign up for their email list. We have, and I always tune into those myself personally. Because they're really well done. So make sure you sign up for their email list, get those the information. That's how I learned all about the Irish whiskey, information that y'all have put out. If you want to find out more about Bourbon Lens, go over to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bourbon Lens. We'd greatly appreciate it if you follow us and like us. Same thing with the podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. And last but not least, thank you to all of our Patreon members, especially Caroline and Simon. Congratulations on your marriage. We are so thankful that you are Patreon members. And if you want to join our Patreon, go over to patreon.com/Bourbon Lens. We'd appreciate it if you would join and sign up. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.